I'm Des.
Hey y'all, I'm Sai.
And we're the co-hosts of Let's Talk Sis podcast, where we truly believe that together empowered women can transform their lives.
Join us for heartfelt stories, enlightening conversations, and a whole lot of accountability along the way. Hey y'all, so we're back with another video.
Hey.
And as you can see, we have our friend here with us today.
Yes.
Simos, go ahead. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, you guys know me as Simos. I believe the rest of the internet knows me by a couple of different names, Bluffa Boy or Approved by C, all depending on what you're coming to me for. Then that's how you'll pretty much address me. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. This has been long.
Overdue.
Long overdue.
Exactly. But hey, I'm glad I'm here.
So introduce yourself. Like, okay, Simos, Approved by C, Bluffa Boy. Who are you? Why are you?
Who am I is a pretty broad question. But ultimately, 24, about to be 25 years old. I was born in West Africa, Liberia to be exact. I moved over to the States when I was 3 years old. Where I was stationed at was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I don't really necessarily know a lot about my upbringing. So I kind of rep both Philadelphia as well as Liberia, West Africa. But the African blood definitely does run heavily through my veins. So I'm always repping, West Africa and Pan-Africanism as a whole in general. But I'm really an open book, to be honest. I do a lot of things right now that we're going to completely uncover. I definitely look to become more vulnerable when it comes to just sharing things with my audience, and also just having like a general conversation, just having you guys pick my brain, and me also discovering a couple things about how you guys think as well.
I want to add really quick. I've known you for a very long time, and I never knew you were born in Africa.
You're lying. So you always thought that I was
West Philly, born and raised.
Southwest Philly?
Yeah, not Africa.
Nah.
I definitely didn't know that.
So the reason behind that, I probably would say, and this is something I've been battling with for a long part of my life too as well, as far as just like having like a identity crisis, right? Whereas though I feel as though that when I was younger, I was bullied into believing that I wasn't African, right? Just because I felt as though that I was kind of in the middle. When I say in the middle, I'm more so referring to the fact that I was too African for the Black American kids and I was too American for the African kids. So with that being said, I never necessarily made it known that I was born in Africa because I used to get picked on. So a lot of times, and it wasn't until we glamorized African people, it wasn't until people like myself, and I'm completely ashamed to say it, but I'm also very transparent to say that it wasn't really until, like I said, it got glamorized through the form of, music, for example. That was one stream and outlet that definitely shined a light on just being, allowing other individuals like myself to be a proud African. But yes, I was born in West Africa. I came here when I was 3 years old. And I mean, I didn't come from the best family, but I also didn't come from the worst family, honestly. Like, I think I had a pretty below middle class upbringing. I didn't get everything that I wanted, but I definitely believe that I got everything that I needed for sure.
Okay. And not to overpower, but I heard you say you felt like you had an identity crisis a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've overcome that, or is that something you may currently still be battling?
I think every 5 years as a human being, you definitely change as far as like your mind state, right? As far as the identity crisis, the reason why I feel as though that I had an identity crisis was simply because, one, I didn't really necessarily love myself, right? And I realized and I knew that I didn't love myself because when I looked inside the mirror, I wanted to fit a more Western European type of look, right? So I remember when I was younger, I had my mom perm my hair. So why did she perm my hair? Because when I looked on television, right, which is one form of media, I started to realize that the people who I idolized didn't look like me, right? So with me perming my hair, I felt as though that straight hair was better than, me being nappy and happy.
Yeah.
Because I used to get picked on in school. So because I used to get picked on in school by a lot of kids who looked just like me, black and brown kids, but they were born here, and I believe they suffer from identity crisis too as well, because a lot of the information that they teach in African American history is whitewashed, right? And a lot of white people, they white out their sins and everything like that. That's why there's such a push and a movement and agenda for them to remove, slavery and abolish establishment of everything that has to do with it within the school districts right now as a whole, especially in Florida. And I believe the governor was saying something about that itself. But most definitely, I talk a lot. Like I really off topic of the question, but yeah, for sure. So I definitely, just to bring everything back, I definitely think now with the help of my family and also social media and just me wanting to identify myself as a actual, African, individual. I think now I'm starting to realize who I am, and that's just me being more self-aware and subconscious of where I come from.
I love that for you.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to dive a little bit into your transition. I feel like I've known you for, I don't know how long it's been, but the past few years, but within like the last, what has been like 2 years or so since you've been here in Houston?
Yeah, I want to say going on 2 years.
Yeah, within the last 2 years, I feel like it has really been a pivotal transition for you in life, not only as far as business, but definitely personal. Because I remember when I first moved here and you were deciding on moving here, we talked about the space that you was in and stuff like that. So do you mind sharing some insight about where you coming from prior to relocating to Houston, or
Sure.
what period that was like for you in life?
So prior to me moving to Houston, I used to live in Philadelphia, right? But prior to me even living in Philadelphia, I've been around a couple times. So I actually used to live in the DMV area, so Richmond, Virginia, DC, Maryland, by the way of my sister and other family members as well. And I also used to live in the Atlanta area, but when I was in the Atlanta area, I wasn't necessarily as comfortable. But just to cap everything off, I was coming from Philadelphia. Now, coming to Houston was one of the best decisions that I ever made inside my life, and I feel as though that your environment shapes your reality. So because I was in such a crime invested city like Philadelphia, and I love Philadelphia, my blood definitely touches Philadelphia, because at the end of the day, even though I was born in West Africa, a lot of my upbringing, 21 years of my upbringing, came from Philadelphia. But I realized that in order for me to grow, I needed to get uncomfortable. So one of the biggest decisions I had to make was moving away from people who I loved and people who essentially, wanted the best for me. However, they couldn't necessarily give me the best narrative simply because they were still looking to, figure out their own life themselves and their own life, themselves as well. But I chose Houston as opposed to a lot of other different cities. One, because Houston has a thriving community of other entrepreneurs, just like Atlanta does, right? So when I was in Atlanta was very exciting. It was very fast. It was I wouldn't necessarily say it was a city of such where as though it was up and coming, just like how Houston is. I feel as though Houston has a lot of hidden fun activities. It's just a hidden gem in general as a whole, to be honest, right? But I wanted to come out here and I wanted to definitely be uncomfortable. So one of the things I wanted to do was, instead of me living by myself, I wanted to get a roommate. So finding a roommate for me was actually very simple. The reason why it was simple for me was because I wasn't afraid to network. So with the space that I'm in, with me being inside the credit space, I was just I didn't even put out a post or anything like that on social media. I think it was very organic. I started to realize that the world started to essentially gravitate more so towards my personal interests, and it started to bring other people who fell in alignment with whatever my agendas were. And that's how I was able to meet someone who's still a very good friend to me today, and we became roommates. So when we moved out here, unfortunately, the decision was made very quick, but I already had my mind made up that Houston was definitely going to be somewhere that I spent a lot of time at, simply because of all of the great things that I've heard about it. And prior to me even visiting, the city just essentially stole my attention, to be honest. And I got a deep love and compassion for Houston. Outside of it being such a bustling and hustling type of city, it's great for entrepreneurialism. The food is great. The women are beautiful. The weather is awesome. So I don't necessarily have too many bad things to say about Houston as of yet.
I want to ask you, so when you came out here, you said it was one of the best decisions you made because you got away from your hometown, basically.
Correct.
What changed for you besides the location and the environment? All environment, location aside, what changed for you?
I think it was the mindset. The mindset in regards to me not being dependent on going back home. So when I came out here, I realized that if I make this move, It's not like me moving from Philadelphia to New Jersey. It's not like me moving from Philadelphia to Delaware, right? I'm gonna be I'm gonna be way more further away from home, which it scared me in the beginning, to be honest. But I realized that I had a paradigm shift in a way. Whereas though coming out here, it made me realize, on top of the uncomfortability, I also needed to rebrand myself, because a lot of the work and a lot of the things I was doing inside the city, it was really detrimental to the safety of myself, and it put me in a lot of crucial situations. Whereas though I wish I would have been smarter with the decisions that I made. Right. Also, on top of that, my mindset shifting and also me having a paradigm shift, I will also say. Coming out here made me realize that I had to find something deeper within, as far as like a mission, right? So just going into it a little bit, I would say that a couple times when I was by myself out here, right, outside of me, of course, having a roommate, when I would just, sit alone inside my apartment, I would always think that there's a reason why I'm here, right? And so with me having that type of mindset and vision, I wanted to essentially seek that greater awakening for myself. So it wasn't until just recently when I figured out what that was. So once I started to become a little bit more conscious of my awareness, and also just being more perspicacious. It's one of my favorite words right now. It just means to be self-aware and cognizant of like what's going on around you, right? I started to realize that I have a lot of powers within myself that I never untapped before. But again, if I would have stayed inside a city like Philadelphia, and this is no hatred towards Philadelphia, because like I said, at the end of the day, Philly also made and consumed me to be the person I am today. I would have never seen the greatness that I had within myself, because I was going to try to be like the other people around me and be conditioned to the environment that I was in. So I'm really trying to focus on essentially just working on my mind, body, spirit, and ultimately just being the best leader that I can be, not just for me, but for the people who are looking at me too as well, which is the younger generation.
Right.
That's what I would say.
So you mentioned an awakening that you encountered recently. So what inspired the awakening that you're kind of going through or transitioning through at this moment?
I think I always felt this way, to be honest. It was just more so the fact that I knew that I was destined, I am destined to do something greater than the original purpose that I thought that I first knew of, right? So I think what really transpired was more so after I had that paradigm shift, and I realized that instead of me trying to just, because of the business that I'm in, I wouldn't necessarily say I have to be flashy or look a certain way, but some of the people who make the most money within my industry, they carry a certain persona. So ever since I was young, I realized that I don't want to be the person with money who doesn't have morals, dignities, ethics, so on and so forth, right? So with that being said, I think it was at the point where I started to realize that 10, 20, 30 years from now, nobody's going to realize the car that I had. Nobody's going to realize nobody's going to think about the apartment that I had, the clothes that I had, the jewelry that I bought, so on and so forth, right? People only care about how you make them feel. So when I realized that people only care about how you make them feel, I started to switch the transition from me looking a certain type of way into me actually thinking and becoming more self-aware of how I can become a better person just by...
When did you make the switch?
I would say I made the switch literally going into New Year.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
I think that as a follower from the outside looking in, not even just like as a friend, but it's definitely been obvious that you are being more intentional with what you feed yourself internally. So I'm kind of excited to dive a little bit more into what brought you to this point. And I'm really excited to see how this goes for you and how it ends up for you.
Well, I appreciate that. So I know that you just touched on something that I actually made a post about recently. And I basically told everyone on my social media platform that I'm going on a cleanse. So everybody has a different type of cleanse. I'm going on a specific cleanse in regards to restraining myself from listening to anything that is toxic to my mind, right? So just as you can think and grow rich, I also think that you can think and go broke as well too, right? With the type of information that you consume, because what entertains you trains you, right? What you tune into, you turn into. So with that being said, with African American music, with rap music to the African American community, I feel like it's just pushing nothing but death and destruction, right? So there's always, fuck that bitch and kill that person. It just sounds all the same to me.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned something that I think is very valuable. In the beginning, when you were introducing yourself, you talked about how there was a culture shift that took place at a very young age, and that's why you were influenced to essentially like change your hair texture, right? And you said that it started from watching television.
Exactly so.
And that's media, and I think that I'm glad that to see that people are officially catching on to how much control and power that media has, whether it be social media, television, the radio, music, or whatever. There's all these different outlets, but it's definitely the sole reason of what influences our culture specifically as African Americans or people of color. So yeah.
we're actually slavery wasn't technically abolished. They just figured out a different way for them to push slavery. So now it's a form of digital slavery, right? So a lot of us content creators, because that's what we are, right? We're content creators. We dedicate a whole lot of time and effort and energy and even resources and money into making digital content, right? But what a lot of people don't realize and know is that this is also a form of slavery because it's a form of labor, right? So there are a lot of people just like you and myself that make content, and we post this content, and this content contains a lot of data, information, and personal, stuff like that too as well that we upload to this platform, right? And essentially, these platforms know more about us than we know about ourselves, right? So when you think about slavery during the times of slavery, right? You have oppressor, right? And you also, you had an oppressor, and you had somebody who was oppressed. So I feel as though the labor that we put into, just making like the content that we make today, none of us necessarily think that, it has some type of leeway towards like slavery, right? But going back into what I was saying, with artificial intelligence, that's going to essentially wipe out a lot of jobs. So I made a post today, it's completely off topic, but I made a post today on my story basically saying that when my kids, are old enough to, make the decision on whether or not they want to go to college or not, I'm gonna more so be pushing for them to go to trade schools, right? Because once you have, once you have the skills to pay the bills, then it doesn't necessarily matter whether or not you have a degree or not, because with AI, it's gonna wipe out all the other jobs out there too as well.
I agree with that 1,000%, especially the trade school idea. I'm not sure, you said you posted about that?
Yeah, I just made a post about that recently.
Yeah, because AI is completely taking over, and although before AI was a thing, I went to college, so I'm able to say, I don't think college prepares you to be financially successful in any way, shape, or form. Honestly, sometimes, and each his own, but I think a lot of the times it's really set up to push you a little bit further behind. And today's time is just getting worse because people can't even get jobs with degrees.
All right.
And they don't offer trades in your regular university. So
they used to though. In the 1970s, that's when they got rid of it, right? And then afterwards, in the 1980s, that's when the crack epidemic came about. The reason why they stopped doing so was because they started to realize that at the end of the day, 70 to 80% of African American people earn their living off of labor jobs. So in order for them to get African American people off of those labor jobs, whether it was like HVAC, plumbing, electrician, so on and so forth, what they had to do was they had to take out the school system. Actually, way before then, high schools didn't even necessarily exist. The reason why they implemented the whole high school, agenda was more so because there were a lot of black boys that used to stand on the corner after graduating elementary school. So they realized, okay, in order for us to get them off of the streets, right, what we're going to do is we're going to create another curriculum. So that's when they created the high school. So with the high school, because you really don't need high school. All you need is a 4th grade education for you to really make it. Because none of us has ever used Y equals MX plus B in any of the fields that we do. Now, granted, it all depends on the type of job and industry that you're working in, but a lot of stuff that they teach, it isn't necessarily counterproductive to the type of jobs and the workforces that we enter today. So it's completely useless if you ask me in today's time. So our parents, I think, prepared us for a world that doesn't necessarily exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
So I have a question. I kind of want to shift the tone a little bit. I feel like it's very informative and very serious. Like I want to loosen up, and I want it. Yeah, I was going to say, let's really get into it. So just going back to, you said so much in such a short period of time. You made a valid point about you transitioning and your new approach, and you realizing how powerful the content that you create is, right, and your influence behind it. Do you think that it is a sacrifice going into this newfound journey that you're on, that you'll have to make as far as content making and content marketing and things of that nature?
Yeah, because it's gonna be young black and brown boys and girls that look just like me, that's looking at my content and just necessarily like thinking like, okay, well, again, like I said, they're gonna look up to me just because of how I dress, how I look, and the things that I have. So I don't want to necessarily manipulate them in the wrong way. That's how I feel. So the content I make now, like you said, I'm making it more intentional as opposed to just putting anything out there just to go viral. So there are a lot of people who do that, and they don't necessarily realize that there's, other people, well, there are younger people, let me say, that are looking at them and they're looking up to them. So it's not that I'm more so changing how I'm making the content, but it's more so I'm actually redirecting my thought process and realizing who is watching the content, if that makes sense.
So would you say before this shift for you, were you more so just selling the lifestyle?
I think I was definitely more so just selling a lifestyle because I think that's what pushed. So a lot of the stuff that I've done, and I would say I'm definitely a victim to it. So before I point the finger at anybody else, I'm gonna point that shit at myself. I feel as though that way before I was just looking to go viral any way, shape, and form that I could. Now it's more so like I don't really give a fuck about going viral, to be honest. If I go viral, I want it to be off of something that's gonna be more so beneficial to like my community, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's what it's
I
really
feel that for sure. All right, so this might be left field, but what's your love life like?
Wait, but I'm sorry. Before we completely change the conversation, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So would you consider yourself an influencer?
I would definitely consider myself an influencer because I've gotten direct deposits from Meta. So yeah, I can definitely say I'm an influencer for sure.
Okay.
And you had a question?
Yeah, what's your love life like?
My love life, I definitely have somebody that I'm entertaining and that has been entertaining me for a very long time too as well. But I'm also very selfish with my time at the end of the day, so I didn't want to necessarily, fully commit just yet to a full-blown relationship. But I can definitely say that I have been dating someone for a very long time.
So I have a question. You said you've been entertaining this person for a long time and they've been entertaining you.
Right.
But at the same sentence, you said you're selfish with your time. So is that the reason why you say that you haven't fully committed? Because go ahead.
No, I was just gonna let you finish, but that's definitely the reason why I would say, how can I essentially love you to the fullest capacity if I can't necessarily give you my time? Because time is one of the most important things in a relationship, in any relationship, whether it's with your mother, your father, your coach, your partner, so on and so forth. Because when you give someone your time, you're giving them a portion of your life that you'll never be able to get back again, right? So now what I tell her, right, and what I have told her in the past is don't commit to me, commit to evolving and I'll meet you there. So with that being said, I feel as though that it would be very selfish of me to say, hey, I love and I want you and I cherish you. However, right, I cannot do X, Y, and Z and commit myself to you fully simply because I'm still young and
So do you feel like do you feel like you arrived to a point of saying like a relationship is a distraction?
A relationship with the wrong person is a distraction. So I feel as though the downfall of a man can be a woman just as the uprise to a man can be a woman. So I wouldn't necessarily pin it on a relationship. I'll more so put it pin it to a person, because at the end of the day, if we're talking about how that relationship that you just mentioned has to do with my socio-economical gains when it comes to just business in general, every single dollar that you ever made came from a relationship. It may not have been a romantic relationship, but you can literally get rich off of networking with the right people. So with that being said, I wouldn't really blame a relationship of any sort.
So why
I think
can't you give her your time?
I do give her my time. It's just more so I feel as though I don't give her all of my time or as much time as needed. But at the same time too as well, why would you as a female, whether you're young or old, want to be with a man that you can be with 100% of the time? You see what I'm saying? So
so when you're in a relationship, that's what happens. You still have your individual life, you do, and she does as well. So are you saying just because you feel like I can't give you 1,000% of my time, I can't commit to you? Because if that's the case, where are you headed? Do you not plan on getting in a relationship anytime? Like,
Is it
where's
like
your goal?
I make the money now and then I'm gonna pursue the relationship?
Exactly.
Or
yeah, that's exactly what it is. I feel as though while you're in your 20s, the best thing for you to do is definitely more so focus on either your career or for you to focus on, just being at a point where as though you can, especially as a man, that's number one. I definitely feel like it's different for a female as opposed to a man. So essentially what I'm saying is that if I put the relationship before my business, right? First of all, one thing that I already know for a fact, right? I can lose money chasing women, but I'll never lose women chasing money, right? So if I'm not able to provide for both me and her, if I'm not in a position to do so, the relationship most likely is going to crumble, and I'm not going to blame her for that. So basically, just to wrap it up, I feel as though that society basically forces men to prioritize their finances over a relationship.
I wanted to ask you, so are you looking to get into a relationship soon? Like, are you looking to make this person your person? Is that the goal, or what's the goal?
That's definitely the goal. I feel as though that's going to be the best thing for me to get in a relationship at some point, to be honest, just because me by myself, I know that I won't be able to be as strong as opposed to me having somebody who essentially can be my confidant and just stand by me and make sure that I safeguard a lot of the situations that I put myself in and through, especially when it comes to just managing and handling my business and personal life too as well. So yeah.
So, all right, here I am again, just trying to change the tone of the conversation. So you said that you aren't exclusively with someone, but there is someone in the picture, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think they coincide with one another.
So are y'all exclusive, or is there just someone generally in the picture? Like, are you dating, you just have a good time trying to figure out, what your intentions are, or are you exclusively?
I think Dr. Umar put it in the best form and fashion. We have a pleasure contract, essentially. So we're not exclusively in a relationship simply because I didn't make it known that I wanted to be boyfriend, girlfriend just yet. But, we have sex, casually. We take trips, we do relationship things, but it is conditional. So that's the reason why it's a pleasure contract. In regards to under certain circumstances, right, and even with myself, I will not be in this relationship if I am not financially where I want to be. So it is definitely conditional.
So I'm just trying to figure out, so like if you go sleep with somebody else tonight, is that considered cheating?
I believe that cheating is doing anything that you wouldn't do if your partner wasn't around, so yeah.
So that's your partner. Okay. We got transparency on the mic.
So I want to ask real quick again, because you keep saying if you're not where you want to be financially, do you feel like you have a cap? Like, is it a goal that you feel like, okay, if I get here?
Yeah, definitely. I want to have like 5 to 10 million. Nothing more, just because I feel like the more money you get, the more your experiences start to change. So sex at 100,000 doesn't feel the same as sex at 10 million, right? So I don't want to be one of those like perverted, like people with so much money to the point where it's always like, damn, like I'm not even comfortable having sex with one woman. Now I need 2. Now I need 3. Now you got situations like P Diddy and all of them. They got so much money to the point where these fantasies start to get aroused by a lot of different things. So I'm not trying to be in that booth.
Do you feel like now you could just be cool with having sex with one person? Because you said you don't want to get to that point where you feel like now I gotta have 2, now I gotta have 3. So right now you're fine with just being with one person?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So do you think that, I know you made a reference to P Diddy, and I'm actually curious because I feel like a lot of these type of conversations always go back to like core value characteristics and things like that. So do you think that men in similar situations as P Diddy, do you think they're unrealistic, well not unrealistic, but their fantasies are pertaining to their financial status, or do you think it's pertaining to?
I 100% think that their fantasies have some type of correlation with how much how much of a financial status that they have, right? So like I was saying, because he's a billionaire, sex and the sex, pleasure, arousement, so on and so forth, is at a completely different like state and level for him. So with that being said, that's the reason why I don't want to have or overconsume so much money.
That makes sense. So basically you're saying if you get $5 million, right, and you having sex or whatever, your fantasies do shift. So do you think that is a feasible reason for him having like interest in men?
I want to really quick piggyback off that question as well and add to her question. And I want to also ask, do you think it's about the money specifically? Because
that's what I was asking.
Times,
is it about the money or integrity?
Because a lot of times it's more so that he's been doing the same thing for so long.
That's what I'm saying too, right?
Just got bored.
So I think the money and the time definitely coincide with one another. But also what I'm trying to add to it is the lifestyle too as well. Yeah. When you think about it,
he might get tired of just sleeping with one girl. Got you.
So now I just made that number of 5 to 10 million. I don't know what that is, but what I'm saying is I definitely want to hit that millionaire status. Whereas I feel as though when I hit $1 million, then I'll be well over like my financial needs to the point where as though because of inflation and everything, think about it, 100,000 ain't worth 100,000 no more, right? So at $1 million, I'll be well over
where you trying to be for yourself,
exactly.
Right?
So I could provide for me, myself, family, generations to come. Generational wealth is the overall goal for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think as we grow, or at least attempt to gain or grow our finances, our experiences within the perimeter of life change
for sure.
Solely. But I still don't think that that's excusable to be playing in another man's butt. But that's neither here nor there.
I also seen a video recently, and a guy was, I guess, kind of similar. He was an athlete, and he was speaking about how during his entire career coming up, he felt like he was having sex with so many different women, it became the same thing. And he said he had all types of sex, did all types of things with all these different women, but over time, it got boring. Because still, different women feel
that's
different, all that type
insane.
of stuff. But a woman is a woman. And he said it was the same thing. He felt like he had sex with so many different women.
So you go try somebody else?
So many different times in so many different ways. So this was his announcement on the internet. He said his solution was he stopped having sex for like a year or 2 years, something like that. Because he was like, he was noticing himself getting bored with women. He was like, and it was starting to scare him. How bored he was getting or how over it he was getting. He was saying so typically that's why he think men, and he was saying basically he understand why men go to other routes with transgenders and the other areas. He was like, because just having sex with women was getting boring for him.
Well, I think that's something personally, to be honest. I don't think he speaks for all or most
Thanks
men.
for clearing that up.
Yeah, because that's not the case. But now what we should talk about is why a lot of men are comfortable with getting their ass ate and going down there.
Let's talk about it real quick.
Let's check.
So I feel like any man who is comfortable getting their ass ate has definitely been what do they call it? Fondled with, as they call it, right?
Fondled, okay, gotcha.
With.
Okay.
Yeah, that's completely inappropriate. One, why? First of all, how does that even take place?
Hold on, can we clear up something real fast? The issue we're talking about labeled straight men getting their ass ate.
Exactly.
We're not,
How do you consider yourself a straight? How do you consider yourself a straight man? You're getting your ass ate. First of all, the first thing that comes to my head psychologically is
the position.
Right? So there's only one of two ways I can think that is going to happen. Yeah. So first of all, at no point...
Face down, ass up.
Basically. That's the other way you're doing it.
Because if you're lifting your legs up,
that's
right,
still wild.
You have no control at that point, one. So now she's dominating you. Right?
Either way, she's dominating.
But that's what I'm saying though, but like why is that, why would you even get to that point, to be honest? And then the other way is like you're turning around doggy style.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have a friend and
somebody gotta explain that to me, but I just don't see it.
Just to keep things surface level, she is into pegging her men, and like that's their thing. And I'm not really one to judge people sexually because I just feel like sexually I haven't really explored as much as I personally would have liked, but if that's what floats your boat, you know, to all means. But there's no way that as a woman, I already possess a lot of like masculine energy, right? But there's no way, shape, or form that this man who God has given the responsibility of headship to, right? I could turn around right now.
Not only
Call me daddy.
that,
Like, what do I say?
women don't be like a little hesitant, because now you doing this to this man with this, what I'm gonna assume, a toy, and he's okay with it, he's enjoying it. You don't think he gonna want to test out the real thing,
My whole take on that,
or probably have before?
I feel like we gotta look at it from a deeper subconscious level too as well, right? Like how I see it is, most people who are sexually promiscuous, it always reverts back to some type of perversion as a child.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of those men, or even girls, they've been essentially like touched by like a family member. For example, like when I think about like a lot of African American men in particular, for example, who have made a decision to become like a homosexual, because that was another thing that we had a conversation about. I feel as though that homosexuality isn't necessarily something that can be inherited, right, through genetics. That's a habit, that's a choice. You feel what I'm saying? And typically when that happens, in my professional opinion, right, psychologically based off of the research that I've conducted and also what I heard from research psychologists, it's simply because one of the reasons is because they didn't grow up with a strong, profound man inside their life. So I have a friend who I grew up with. He grew up around all women, right? He didn't have no father figure, right? No grandfather, nothing like that. So when you're in a house with just nothing but women, right? You gotta realize that kids mimic what they see and repeat what they hear, right? So with that being said, that was the first thing. Secondly, you may have had a older man essentially, take his manhood from him at a young age. So at that point, again, he starts to become sexually promiscuous, right? So even as a young woman, even how we see a lot of young women today, from the shit that they wear to the lyricism inside the verses that a lot of the rappers start to display, so on and so forth, it's not really necessarily productive to the type of society that we're trying to move towards
as far as progression. I definitely agree. I want to talk a little bit about something that you said. Okay, so I'm very like in tune with the girls, especially from our community, from having friendships outside of the community. Sisterhood has always been just a key component to like my life and my development as a woman. And a lot of times we talk about like sexual abuse and stuff like that, right? And obviously this is like taboo. This is one of those frowned upon topics. A lot of the time it gets swept under the rug and things of that nature. But like as a man, what is it like, not for you personally, because I'm not sure if this is something that you have experienced, but like are you familiar, or is this a present issue or trauma that black men specifically are experiencing in their childhood as far as being sexually abused? Or do y'all not have conversations like that?
I think a lot of black men in particular definitely probably went through something like that. And it may not even be from a homosexual point of view.
Yeah,
but
no,
it may
absolutely.
Even been like a woman, like touching a young boy, at a adolescent age, right? But I also feel as though that a lot of men don't necessarily have a voice, right? So who can they run to have these uncomfortable conversations? Especially when a lot of young black boys were raised by who? Their single black mothers. So I always point the finger and I ask, if a lot of black women today are saying that black men ain't shit, right, and they don't necessarily want to be in a relationship with a black man, so they're stepping outside of that ethnic group, you have to point the finger back at yourself and realize that most of the black men today, right, in general, were raised by single African American mothers. Right. So with that being said, a lot of us have also been emasculated, right, to the point where as though it's like, for example, I had a conversation with the girl that I'm dealing with, and I tell her all the time that, if we're walking down the street, for example, right, let's just say walk past a group of guys, and a group of guys says something, very like disrespectful to you, prerogative to you, right? Depending on the type of female that you're with, a lot of females, right, will essentially require or assume that I would, go out of my way to put myself in some sort of danger, right, to protect her verbally, but sticks and stones may break your bones, but words should never hurt you, right? And depending on the type of female that she is, she may look at it as he's a coward, right? He doesn't, he's not somebody that's gonna, stand up and defend me, so on and so forth. But as a man, we have to realize that men and women don't view violence the same. You and her can fight right now, and 9 out of 10 times, it may and will not result in death or any real physical harm. When 2 men fight, right? 2 men can literally fight to the death. And I'm not saying that to say that, it's not necessarily the same for all cases, but we have to look at things, men look at things more so from an analytical standpoint, while women look at things more so from a, emotional standpoint.
Yeah, and I feel like that's an instinct as well. And I'm speaking from having brothers around and like uncles and stuff like that. So I think men really take the gift that God has given them as far as like protecting and providing to heart, And I feel like we can kind of make the correlation as women for a mom or someone who is in their nurturing element. So that's something that we take to heart. Like, even though I'm not a mom and I haven't had children yet, I am a godmom, and I just know how I feel about them, even though I didn't birth them. So I can completely understand in that nature for sure.
But at what level should a man take to protect you if it means that he has to essentially safeguard his own security and then put himself in danger to a point where, let's just say he was to overreact, right? And he protected you, and let's just say he pulls out a gun or he gets into a fist fight, whatever the case may be, and then he goes to jail. Then you gotta think, okay, boom.
This affected so much more than just this moment, And I think I was gonna say, and I think it really just comes down to like the type of guy that you're dating, or what the situation is. Because I've dated men who aren't level-headed, who will overreact, and I'm the one who's like, it's not that serious, like it's not that deep, it doesn't require that much energy. But then I can't say that I've dated a man who would just be passive be passive in the sense of just letting the moment pass. But I think that the amount of aggression that is used in a situation kind of shows how much authority that you have as a man, because you don't have to rebuttal in a negative way or feel like, I think it's ego. It comes from ego. Yeah. Ultimately, a man feels disrespected or his ego is bruised if somebody's hollering at his girl. But then there's another type of man who will take it as a compliment, like, oh, thanks, bro. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think it really just comes down to that.
So I actually have a question for you, Sai. As a female, as a woman, and you're out with your man, and guys are giving disrespectful catcalls, and your man walks and like completely ignores it, try not to say nothing, come on, like, don't worry about it, but they're continuing to be disrespectful and make catcalls, but your man is not responding at all. How do you react to that?
What's disrespectful catcalls? Because I'm from Philly, so I'm used to the
No, when I'm saying disrespectful, like, calling you out your name and stuff like that. And I'm asking this question because I'm referencing it to a movie. The movie, it don't matter, but this happened, and the guys was like, they tried to come at her, and when she basically kept walking, ignored them, it's the, oh, bitch, and like disrespectful stuff. Start disrespecting you once they don't get, I guess, attention or the reaction that they wanted in the first place. And your man is not defending you. What do? You keep walking like it's not happening?
Personally, I don't think I'm mature enough. So if I was put in a situation where I was walking down the street with my man or whatever the case may be, and a group of men said like, damn beautiful or whatever the case may be, I would expect my man to say like, thank you, like, or I know, like, or that's mine or whatever the case may be, if said anything at all, right? Now, if it's like they get turned down or I'm completely ignoring them and their ego is hurt and that's forcing them to be rude or disrespectful, at that point, I personally would like for my man to speak up. Yeah, because
I'm asking if he doesn't, like, what do you do in that case?
I wouldn't be in a situation like that.
But I'm asking that question because C basically just said he felt like the higher role as a man would be to walk away and not say nothing or not.
But that's logical, and I think that in a situation where you feel disrespected, it takes a very mature. That's why I started this off by speaking on maturity. But I think that in a situation where disrespect is present, it takes a very level-headed and mature, logical person to process that side of emotions first before feeling whatever emotion they feel in that moment. Right. So me, I started this off by saying I'm not that emotional. However, if I was with a man, I would prefer for him to take acknowledgement in a sense. But then also, if it does turn to a point of being disrespect, then I would like to feel defended for it, because it's going to, like, if that was, like, let me answer your question from a hypothetical stance. If that was to transpire, I would look at him differently.
See, what you just said is the exact reason why I believe that it takes two parents in a household to raise a child. Your reaction right there was completely feminine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I believe that it was completely feminine. The reason why I believe that it was completely feminine is because when you think about, again, how a lot of, especially black boys, were raised by their mothers. Guess what? Whenever your mother gets mad, she did what? She beat you, right? Why? Because, again, biologically speaking, that was her reaction. So a lot of women react, right? They're reactive. Men are supposed to be proactive. So, again, if me as a man in a situation like that, right? And again, if it's one person who's saying something as opposed to a group of people, listen, I can't beat up a group of people, right? Now, as you said, to your defense, right? If it was one person, even if it was a group, if it was something, she's good, so on and so forth, that is understood. Now, if it's just strictly, verbal disrespect and there is no type of physical like altercation or anything like that taking place, I don't feel as though a man should put himself in a position where as though he gets vulnerable to the point where as though he's emasculated based off of your own opinions because he believes that he's not man enough. He's not a man if he doesn't react. Is the exact, and I feel as though that if a man was to react in a situation like that, that could be the very reason as to why he no longer has his freedom.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely agree. I'm not, challenging your perspective at all. I think that as a man, that is what you're supposed to say, being as though you're a more logical creature than it coming from a female's perspective. But I still stand beside what I say. But I don't think that you're wrong at all. Destiny, how would you feel? I'm interested to hear your perspective.
I would feel like you can't protect me. I would feel like why are you not? I understand what you said. Like I said, it's very logical, but emotionally and mentally, like I don't know, just as a female, I would feel like you can't protect me because the way my mind works, which is I overthink and analyze every single thing. It's like you can't protect me in an instance like this. I can't really trust you to protect me in any other given situation.
So then let me ask you a follow-up question. So put yourself in that situation, right? Mm-hmm. You and your guy, you're walking down the street, like she says, it starts with an initial catcalling. Catcalling doesn't work for whatever reason. Let's just say you guys are, prolonged at that exact location. Now it starts to get more disrespectful, so on and so forth. Like, what is your exact, what are you essentially looking for your dude to do in a situation like that exactly, right? Like, as far as like, what type of reinforcement should be taking place in your opinion?
Are the roles reversed? Are the roles reversed?
No.
Oh, the same situation.
Yeah, same situation. I'm just asking her what is her expectation from
He need to
a
defend
man.
me. He need to say something.
That's what I'm saying. But is it a physical defense or just
No,
verbal?
just verbal.
No, verbal.
Oh, because I said that. That's why I was trying to figure out the disconnect.
Verbal.
So you're saying if he doesn't say anything at all, then it's a problem.
Exactly.
But, okay, but it's just acknowledging.
Like if you start
she's
tugging
good.
my arm
Yeah,
and
you
say,
start pulling me like, come on, baby, we gotta
Come
go.
on,
Like,
babe,
you
yeah.
scared.
But again, what can one person do with a group of men at the end of the day? And I'm
Figure it out.
I'm not defending.
It's
either
two of
argument.
us.
I'm just trying to figure out like the
Like I
psychology
said, figure it
around
out.
it.
It's-
Right.
Listen,
That's what
why
men
you-
are here
That's
for.
why your man gotta have that thing.
that's you talking about a gun before we even talk
Yeah,
about a gun. It's two of us for one. For two, it's no. That's like my man getting into a fight and getting beat up. I'm going to look at him different. I don't think I'm mature enough to still date a man after he get beat up. I'm being honest.
That's what you just said. No, I'm only laughing because I had a situation like that when I was younger, and I was in a relationship where this is the funniest thing ever, right? My girlfriend at the time, I had a boosie fade, right? My cut was sharp.
I remember those days when you had a booty.
Exactly. So me and her was walking down the street to get some water ice, right? Now this isn't a situation with a group of guys. This is just a bunch of immature teenagers. You feel what I'm saying? So we're walking down the street. So he's literally doing exactly what you guys were talking about, right? He's catcalling. He's making like smart remarks, like damn, she got like little shit like that.
Oh, they knew you.
Yeah, they knew me
Okay.
exactly. So I don't know if that changed the situation or not, but she's getting mad, like, why aren't you saying something? I'm just like,
Well,
I was gonna say, like, I'm telling her, like, yo, like, chill, like, this is just how guys like play around, like, don't take this serious or anything like that. He means no harm, so on and so forth, right? When we get back to the house, it's a little bit of a heated argument because again, she feels as though that I wasn't defending her honor. So because I was emasculated and I felt as though, damn, now I don't want her to look at me as less of a man, I went back right, out of outrage and now out of reaction, I went back, knocked on the door, right? He didn't want to come to the door, and I literally broke the glass. Now my entire hand is busted up, bleeding, right? And again, after I did that, she definitely looked at me a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I started to think, like, after that, I'm like, was that really worth it? Like, my entire
But after that, you was
swollen.
okay. So after that, you was still getting the yams though, right?
Huh?
After that, you was.
Before that, I was still gonna get the yams. It
But-
didn't change the effect of it.
No.
That's what I'm trying to
I
say.
think no, but I think that knowing them made it worse. The fact that you know these dudes and you still not.
It's like they don't
opening your
respect
mouth and
you.
Defending me, yeah. It's like now they don't respect you. They saying, "Damn, see," and you know this my girl.
They didn't know
They
that was my
don't-
girl. They just seen
It don't matter. That's a girl that's on your side.
No, wait. Let me
Right,
ask though. How old were you?
I was probably like 16, 17.
It's
You too
completely
old.
different. No, in 9th grade, boys do play around like that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't
Maybe
think-
not
I
in
think
front
it's
of like.
But
I'm-
you don't say nothing back. The fact that you didn't say anything back to these guys that you knew.
My whole thing was, it's all about energy for me. I'm all the way down the street over here. You yelling from a window. What? Yo, it's like it doesn't make sense for me. I'm not about to get out of character.
Did you grow
for
up
me to
in
react to that.
what type of home did you grow up in? Like, was your
I
mom
grew
and
up in a
dad?
two-parent household.
Okay, yeah. So I was about to say, I think that plays a huge role in some of your responses, and I think that this conversation was really good because it provided a different perspective,
Yeah.
for sure, especially in comparison to Destiny's and I's perspective. I feel like a lot of times we end up agreeing on certain things, you know? So it was kind of good to have that male's presence. So,
Yeah.
and also you're our first male guest.
I want to say I was over here smiling a lot because I'm just thinking about like how we all first got down here, and I can remember back to literally you saying, "See, like, yo, my homegirl down there, y'all gotta connect, y'all gotta talk to each other. You know her?" And you sent me her Instagram, and I'm like, "Wow,
Yeah,
look at
look
us
at
now."
Oh wow, I never even
Networking.
thought about that.
That's just
Well,
crazy.
thank
That's pretty
you
cool.
Thank
for
you.
bridging the gap. See,
And I want you to. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, just thank you for bridging the gap. I feel like without that reinforcement, Destiny and I probably would have never really came together. Like, yeah, we knew each other prior. Yeah, we were, chatting in the DM, but women, we got
Especially women like
egos.
us.
I was about to say, and women like us, we definitely needed that reinforcement to be like, all right, it's a safe ground. I can get some insight. I can put some information, like who's who and what's what. So I appreciate you for that, because without that, we probably wouldn't even all be sitting here on this couch doing this podcast. So
Nah, facts.
And I also want to add, see, I am very proud of you.
no facts. Me and Destiny talk about this all the time.
Appreciate that.
I feel like I've watched, I'm not saying like I'm, but I feel like I've watched you grow. Like I've watched you develop through so many different phases of your life. And not only am I proud of where you are today, but I'm really excited to see where you go.
Yeah, I'm most excited for that, because I feel like it's one thing when you get like the monetary
Yeah.
gain, you get an established business, but for you to experience a paradigm shift, that's a
Yes,
big deal. I
that's
don't even think
big.
people know what a paradigm is. Like when that internal spiritual man and that mental factor collides, and it's like if you put that paradigm shift with everything else and every other area that you're doing well in, like you finna be a legend, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to be by your side, to be a part of the journey.
Definitely.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're gonna be able to refer back to this episode in a year or so.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And keep making a movie and doing your thing.
Thank you guys for giving me my flowers while I'm here.
Yes.
Definitely appreciate that.
If you can give a word of advice to anyone, we usually end up with a word of advice to a sister. But if you can give a word of advice to a brother, a friend, anybody, what would it be?
I think the best thing I could say is really just get started. It doesn't necessarily matter how you're gonna get it done, but so long as you know why you have to get it done, then that's all that matters. A lot of people's dreams fall short simply because it's undermined by a lot of other people's opinions. So you have to realize that opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one, right? So at the end of the day, once you make a decision and you have a thought in your mind, the thought that you have, make sure that you actually manifest it into something in physical form, right? So don't just give up on your thoughts simply because somebody else doesn't necessarily agree with your narrative or your dreams. God didn't give them that vision, so that's the reason why that they don't necessarily believe in you. So
Yes.
getting started is really the quickest way for you to be able to see some type of result in anything that you want to do. So that's the best advice I can give to anybody.
I think that was really, really good.
That was really good advice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Destiny,
Well,
what's yours?
My advice is to network. This advice is for myself as well. Network. Get out there, get in the field, meet new people. Don't be too prideful or just scared of expanding your horizons and growing your network. I'm not saying be best friends with everybody you run into or, be like how we are instantly, but definitely I feel like you could give everybody a chance.
That's a fact.
So yeah, just network.
Yeah. My word of advice would be, it's going to be for male or female today, because normally we do a sister. It's going to be have those uncomfortable conversations. And I want to be transparent for a second. Like, me and Destiny, we met almost 2 years ago, and we immediately kicked it off. And I feel like our friendship has grown so fast in such a short period of time. For us to introduce business on top of all of that has really made this dynamic really complex. But I feel like what's really going to keep us in the long haul of things is the fact that we're able to have those uncomfortable conversations. So my advice tonight would be to just really have those uncomfortable conversations. Don't overthink it, because 9 times out of 10, when you do initiate those conversations, you be like, oh, it really wasn't that bad, or oh, they didn't respond or react the way that I anticipated. So that's mine. Any last remarks you want to share, Simone?
I'm gonna leave off on this. I know I said I was gonna leave off on what I just mentioned earlier, but I think this is gonna definitely make things a little bit more sweet, right to the point, and it's a great message. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I want everybody that watches this to realize that money isn't really as important as we think it is, right? At the end of the day, people matter. Making money is a social activity, and your true value in life is solely based upon how valuable you are to other people, right? So be the change that you want to see, ultimately.
That's
all I can
good.
say.
Oh my goodness. It's like you just be growing and changing.
I know. Like, I would have never. It's so crazy because when we had the idea for the podcast, I never would have thought you got on with this, like.
This whole new.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so happy though. I love it.
Yeah. Well.
It's a part of evolving. Thank you.
So, to wrap it up, guys, you got to go to dearsisterletstalk.com.
And get your merchandise.
I got mine.
And don't forget to use promo code DSPOD
for 15% off.
Yep. And if you're listening to this on any of your favorite Audible platforms, don't forget to download and save our podcast. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, please don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.
And also to add, on our Audible platforms, give us a rating. Give us a star rating, and also give us a comment. Let us know what y'all think. What do y'all want? What do y'all want to hear? And again, thank you all for watching. Thank you, C, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into our podcast, Let's Talk Sis, with Des and Sa.
Stay connected by following us on all of your favorite social media platforms. And don't forget, use hashtag DearSisterLet'sTalk to find us.
Wait, before you go, head over to our website or our Instagram and join our interactive community for a daily dose of sisterhood, where like-minded women fellowship, encourage, and create a safe space amongst one another.
See you inside, sis.
Toodles.
Bye.